Thank you. My name is Malezer. I'm with the Foundation for Aboriginal Island Research Action. I worked on the Royal Commission to Aboriginal Deaths in Custody, and for the last 10 years I've been working at the United Nations on the rights of Indigenous peoples, including with the Committee on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. I want to point out that this report is only a limited report. It is only an investigation into the investigations. It doesn't address the actions of HURLEY. It doesn't address whether police officers should be charged for their part in the killings. Nor, on what I've been able to read of it so far, does it put this in the context of continuing Aboriginal deaths in custody. For example, there's the case of Mr. Ward in Western Australia, who actually died under torture. Then there's the case of DOOMADGEE Ryder in Alice Springs, who was killed, but the findings of the judge was he died of a blood clot, most likely his own fault, rather than being killed at the hands of 5 or 6 youths in Alice Springs. This is a continuation of the deaths in custody which was investigated by the Royal Commission 20 years ago. And nothing has changed in Queensland. The culture of Queensland continues. So there's a few things we have to do in reaction to what's in this report. If you look towards the end of the report, it says the Commissioner of Police must be held accountable for the culture in the Queensland Police Service. And I believe that that's one thing this report gives to us, is the opportunity to say the Commissioner of Police should be dismissed for the continuing culture that exists in the police service. I understand his contract finishes in October. He's dodged his responsibilities, he hasn't carried out his responsibilities, and as a Commissioner he must pay for that. And we must have in place in Queensland a Commissioner of Police who's prepared to consider issues such as Aboriginal deaths in custody, who's prepared to consider the policing in Aboriginal communities, who's prepared to consider the fact that there is racism inherent in the state and inherent in the system, and be prepared to address that within the police service. Otherwise these deaths are going to continue. They are continuing as we speak here now. There has to be something fundamental to change. I know that the Minister for Police at the time should also be culpable. However, it's no good sacking the current Minister for Police on this one. So I believe that this report at least gives us enough to say the Commissioner for the Queensland Police is not capable of being responsible for that position, and that's something we should act on. It's also been mentioned about the police union, how the police union has interfered as much as possible in the administration of justice in this state. As a police union, they have a certain role and responsibility to their members, but their responsibility is to not control the administration of justice. It's not to preempt the administration of justice. It's not to protect police officers from being charged or being investigated. Is not to support the efforts made by police to bring in a different style of policing when it comes to Aboriginal people and Aboriginal communities in the state. So the police union has to be told to get back to where it belongs and to stay out of politics in Queensland and to stay out of the administration of justice in Queensland. That is something that we demand. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, we have the same right as anybody else in this state to fair, impartial practices in the administration of justice. And when there is a killing, and we know in Palm Island there was a killing, there has to be procedures carried out as if it was of a white person and a white family and so on. Not just turning away the families and telling them later on about a death that occurred. It's not about getting in your mates to cover up evidence or not collect evidence in the process leading down to investigation, and not to have a system in the courts, in the police, in the parliament, which protects these people as being innocent when clearly they are guilty. They've created a problem in this state. It's a problem again, as it was when the deaths in custody. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have no basis to have any faith in the administration of justice in this state. And so it's not just in the case of this one killing, and we will see justice on that one, but it's about everything else that's going on in relation to the administration of lives here. And particularly, look at the number of people that are being put in the prisons and the number of youth that are being put under detention. And look at the lack of programs that are there for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to avert the justice system, to be able to operate functionally as communities and operate functionally as families. They are not there, and yet they're still building more prison beds. the Human Rights Commission has called for monies to be taken out of the jailing system, the criminal justice system, and to be put towards programs that work for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and let people in these communities make their own decisions. We have a tragedy in Palm Island. It was a penal settlement from the time it was first formed in the early 1900s. It was there for people to be sent, to be penalised, to have their freedom of movement restricted. So Palm Island itself is a community that's suffering, and it will continue to suffer by these sort of things of bad policing. It will continue to suffer by injuries in these communities of people in alcohol inflicting injuries upon each other. It will continue to suffer with infant mortalities. It will continue to suffer as long as it's being treated as a penal colony, as a penal settlement. So more has to be done, and it's a wake-up call again for the Queensland Parliament that they have to get up and start doing something. In 3 months' time, Australia is going to be examined before the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And this committee is formed under the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, and it is there to ensure that governments live up to their obligations under that convention. Australia signed the convention in 1967 and it ratified the convention in 1975 when it passed the Racial Discrimination Act. But look what's going on in Australia now about its international obligations. These are obligations. They are in law, they're in international law, and they are in Australian law, except when you get the parliaments like in Canberra that suspend the Racial Discrimination Act, and you get the parliaments in Queensland that flaunt the Racial Discrimination Act, and you get the courts like the Federal Court at the moment, and even the High Court, who do not know what racial discrimination is, and who are coming up with bad decisions about what racial discrimination is all about. Anyway, to come back to this report in the final words, there's a clear message there. The culture of the police service has got to change thoroughly, not just dealing with the case of HURLEY, not just in case of how investigations will be done. It says in here, every death in custody should be treated like a homicide. I don't know why that wasn't happening already. Why does it have to happen now in 2010 that it's decided that the police service should investigate every death in custody as a homicide? So let's get behind this and push this. I'll be pushing this also at the international level, and I'll be making people aware around the world about justice Australian style, about justice Queensland style, about the role of the police to oppress and keep the Aborigines in their place. Thank you very much.